The year was 1984, and as usual, Nebraska had some talented football players go in the NFL draft. In fact, they had 3 this year go in the first round. Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
I've got this one. I don't get many on this show, but I have this one.
You have this cold, huh?
Irving Fryer.
Yes, to New England.
Dean Steinkuhler.
Big offensive lineman.
And, of course, Mike Rozier, who I think went in the supplemental draft. That's a first-round choice.
Yes, it is. You did it. You got it right.
On the back.
You should pat yourself on the back.
I don't get these things very often. Speaking of Nebraska,
you didn't have to tell them that. They know that.
The Cornhuskers traveled to Manhattan, Kansas Saturday, and I think Tom Osborne has been a bit perplexed with the Nebraska offense, but he got a good performance on Saturday from Mike Grant and Mickey Joseph, the 2 quarterbacks, and the Nebraska defense has been terrific the entire season. Let's go back and take a look and see what happened in Manhattan. It was Nebraska visiting Kansas State.
In Manhattan, Kansas, the 8th-ranked and unbeaten Nebraska Cornhuskers face the surprising Wildcats of Kansas State, off to their best start in years. The Wildcats marked their territory early with defense. Leotis Flowers, the 4th leading rusher in the Big 8, said this was the toughest rushing day for him this season. The Nebraska defense had some talking of their own to do. Paul Watson, filling in for starter Carl Straw, found himself on the stadium turf more than he cares to remember. The Huskers finally came to life on the legs of sophomore speedster Tyrone Hughes. Chris Cobb gets off the punt that Hughes receives at his 12-yard line. Then the 1989 Big 8 punt return leader took off on a trip that would take him 66 yards and give the Cornhuskers 1st and 10 at Kansas State's 22. But the KSU defense held, and Greg Berrios came in and hit the 33-yard field goal. And Nebraska had a 3-0 lead. Again, when the defense came on, they made life miserable for Watson and the Wildcat offense. 6 times on the afternoon, Watson was sent to the ground. It was the special teams that got the Cats on the board. Mike Stiggy, punting from deep in his own territory, has it blocked by William Price, and Kansas State picked up the safety, making it a baseball-like 3-2 score in the first. The Cornhuskers, though, are among the nation's best teams, and they took it right back at Kansas State. Mike Grant passes for 129 yards on just 8 completions. Nate Turner with a 15-yarder here brought the Huskers near midfield. Then Leotis Flowers got things going as he took off around the left side for 11 yards. And Nebraska had it going down at the Wildcat 22. 2 plays later, Grant back to pass. He finds his roommate John Bostic for the 5-yard touchdown. And the Huskers take a 10-2 lead going into the half. In the second half, the Cats brought back their starter, Carl Straw. But he wasn't greeted very well as Travis Hill tips his pass. And teammate Joe Sims comes up with his first career interception, giving Nebraska the chance to break the game open. And that's what looked to happen. Flowers, who had 112 yards on the day for his 3rd straight 100-yard rushing day, picks up 21 here, giving the Huskers a 1st and 10 at the 10 of K-State. On the next play, backup quarterback Mickey Joseph called his own number and scored on the 10-yard keeper. And Nebraska opened up a 17-2 lead early in the 3rd quarter. The Cats added a field goal. But Nebraska then went on a 9-play, 73-yard drive. Most of it when Grant on 3rd and 16 went to the air and again hooked up with John Bostic. This one for 45 yards and a 31-5 Cornhusker commanding lead. The Cats added another field goal, and on the ensuing kickoff, Tyrone Hughes camped under the ball at his own 1-yard line. From there, he would take off on a venture that would bring him 99 yards for the touchdown. The Huskers turned this early battle into a lapper as they were rolling all over the Wildcats now in a rout 38-8. The defense continued to torment Paul Watson and limited the Cats to just 159 yards of total offense on the day. For the icing on the cake, Mickey Joseph added this 26-yard run to pay dirt. And number 8 Nebraska remained unbeaten as they defeat the Kansas State Wildcats 45-8 on the Cats' home turf.
A catchword coaches like is parity. They also like a word called improvement. And Kansas State is vastly improved this year. You think about it, the last couple of years when Nebraska and Oklahoma and Colorado went and played Kansas State, really wasn't much of a ball game.
I'm thinking of your catchword.
Well, the catchword was improvement.
I think Kansas State certainly has been improved. And I'll tell you something, Nebraska, no matter who they're playing, you can count on a few things. A good, solid running game. They got that with Leotis Flowers over 100 yards for the 3rd consecutive game. And a defense that I think is as good as any defense in America. They're quick up front, they cover people in the secondary, and they're all very good tacklers.
Yeah, they're excellent tacklers. Again, people around the country looking in on Nebraska at halftime, up only 10-2 on Kansas State.
Sixth inning score.
Yeah, 6th inning people. Not too many people probably figured that. And outside, I'll speak for you. The plays of the week, yes, the plays of the week, the players of the week, and the hits of the week. But this week we are songs, the hits of the week.
We have no hits.
We have no big hits this week. None could live up to Tim James's hit of last week.
Yeah, you'll find few that live up to that one, I can tell you that very much. But the offensive player of the week this week in the Big 8 Conference is Nebraska wingback Tyrone Hughes. Had a great game this past Saturday. He had 3 kickoff returns for 153 yards. That includes a 99-yard touchdown return, the longest for the Huskers since 1949. He also added 94 punt return yards on 5 attempts. His long punt return was 66 yards. By the way, kickoff and punt returns are both conference bests this year. The offensive player of the week in the Big 8 Conference is Nebraska sophomore wingback Tyrone Hughes.
And the defensive player of the week this week in the Big 8 is Missouri senior defensive back Harry Colon. Colon was in on 16 tackles, 3 of them for lost yardage. The senior from Washington High School in Kansas City leads the Tigers with 59 tackles on the season, and he leads them in tackles for losses with 7. The defensive player of the week in the Big 8 Conference, Harry Colon, senior from the University of Missouri.
The Big 8 Conference schools nominate each and every week players for their players of the week, and we choose, and I'll tell you, 2 outstanding performances by those 2 kids.
Yeah, excellent weeks, and quite an honor to be the Big 8 player of the week.
No doubt about it. Well, it's time for the plays of the week, and we've got 4 of them this week in the Big 8 Gridiron Report. We'll start Saturday in Columbia, Missouri. The University of Colorado's Mike Pritchard takes a pitch from Charles Johnson, and 68 yards later, it's a touchdown for the Colorado Buffaloes. The score tied it up at 14 before halftime, and of course, Colorado went on to beat Missouri 33-31.
Shall we stay in Columbia, Missouri?
I think that's a good idea.
Excellent idea. Ken Kiefer had an outstanding day on Saturday. A number of people did offensively. Kiefer, the quarterback for Missouri, drops back here and throws a 48-yard pass. Look at this grab by Damon Mays. Pretty good coverage by Dave McCluen, but Mays extends himself and comes up with a great grab that set up another Missouri touchdown as they held on till late in the ballgame.
Play of the week number 3 was in the Nebraska-Kansas State game. We've talked a little bit about Tyrone Hughes before. Here he gets the ball on the 1-yard line and goes 99 yards for the touchdown. Hughes now averaging over 37 yards a kickoff return, and that's the first touchdown kick return since Keith Jones in 1985 for the Huskers.
Keith Jones, pretty good player.
I'll tell you what, he can run. Keith Jones could run too, but Tyrone Hughes has great speed.
Only a sophomore. As Keith Jackson would say, only a sophomore.
Yes, indeed, he did.
Perhaps the best play of the week occurred in the Oklahoma State game in Stillwater. Just a couple of seconds left before halftime. Oklahoma benefits from an Oklahoma State timeout. They throw the Hail Mary, or the Kale Mary as they're now calling it in Norman, and Adrian Cooper, the 6'6" tight end, hauls it in and falls into the end zone, and instead of going in trailing 14-7, the Sooners go in knotted up with the Cowboys at 14-all. You know what's amazing? It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. Those Hail Marys work from time to time. Were you ever in your college or NFL career on the receiving end of one of those?
Unfortunately, no. I wasn't on the receiving end, but we played in the game against the Vikings. Ahmad Rashad caught one to beat us in December at Bloomington, and that's when they played in the old Met Stadium. And if you're on the receiving end, fine and dandy, but boy, you hate to lose a game like that.
That is one of the more famous ones, too, that you're referring
Absolutely.
to. When we come back, it's time for Dave and I to throw our hats in the ring and see if we can predict a couple of upcoming football games in the Big 8. Stay with us.
The the segment that we make our mighty predictions, and of course we've done this for a couple of years, looking at the games in the Big 8 Conference. And I lost last year. I hate to gloat, but a substantial lead this side of the table has in this year's race.
You kind of struggled through that, Dave. I mean, you should be proud of the fact that
I am very proud.
You're winning.
I am very
proud.
You're
a competitive guy.
All right, let's take a look at the games this week. And last week, of course, we were 3-0-1. The tie between Iowa State and Kansas. We'll throw that out as a tie, although I guess it could be a loss for both of us. Iowa State at Colorado, first game on the slate. What do you think?
This, like we said last week with the Missouri-Colorado game, we accurately said that would be a good football game.
Absolutely.
We have to pat each other on the back on that one.
We didn't say there'd be 5 downs to win, though.
No,
I guess
we did not.
That.
We were wrong. We should have realized that. In any event, I think this will be a great football game. I really do. Iowa State is prolific on offense. You talk to Bill McCartney all the time. Max says that they might be as good as any team we've played offensively this year.
He thinks they're outstanding offensively. He said Blaze Bryant could be the best back in the country right now and feels certain he'll be in the National Football League in the upcoming years and be a star there. I think Iowa State will move the football in Colorado. I think they'll score some points, but I think Colorado offensively will be a bit too much for the Cyclones, and I look for a tough-fought victory for CU.
Yeah, I think Colorado at home at Folsom Field will beat Iowa State in another outstanding game. Colorado's played a number of them this year.
Oklahoma State and Kansas State hook up at Manhattan, and this could be a pretty good game as well. I like Kansas State.
Do you know what? See?
All right, I'll take Oklahoma State.
You don't have to do that.
All right, I'm staying with Kansas State at home in a close game.
I like Kansas State, but I mean, if I'm to make up any ground, I should say Oklahoma State, shouldn't I?
Do better, Drew. You can make up ground in the next game. Kansas at Miami of Florida.
That is a really tough chore for Glenn Mason.
Glenn Mason was talking about his schedule as to who made this thing up, and I don't blame him. They're in conference play now and playing Miami.
You mentioned the Minnesota Vikings. Could the Vikings beat Miami of Florida right now?
We both like Miami. Missouri at Nebraska.
I like Nebraska.
I like Nebraska as well. And finally, Oklahoma at Texas, or not at Texas. They play in the Cotton Bowl.
In Dallas. I like Texas here. Texas is a good football team.
Here's your chance.
Not that Oklahoma's not, but I like Texas.
I'm taking Oklahoma to beat Texas.
That'll do it. We hope you've enjoyed another edition of the Big 8 Gridiron Report for Dave Logan. I'm Drew Goodman. We'll see you again next week.